Welcome to Wayne County Connection. I'm your host, Michael Sweigart. Thanks for joining me again as we promote Wayne County as a great place to work, live, and play. Every month we bring to you individuals in the agencies that they represent that are doing their part to affect one of those areas, either working, living, or playing in Wayne County, and we invite you to get connected with them to do your part as well. Maybe today's guest isn't the guest that really clicks with you, but we hope you enjoy the program anyway. Maybe you'll check out our website at waynenet.org/cc for previous guests and other shows that we've done about things going on in and around Wayne County, and find out more about ways that you can share your time, energy, and talents with this community to make it the place that everybody wants to be. We really love it here in Wayne County, and we hope you do too. And we hope you share it not only with your fellow neighbors, but with people that are out of the area. And you can find more information about how to do that on our website as well. That's waynenet.org/cc. And hop over to the WayneNet calendar for activities and events that are going on in and around our community. We're about ready to start a new year, and it's a great time, if you haven't gotten connected in the past, to get connected now. Speaking of the past, I'm pleased to bring to the show today Sue King, and we're going to find out a lot about Sue King. But Sue, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. I said we're going to find out a lot about you, and I know a little bit about you. You're a Navy veteran. You work at Morrisson-Reeves Library.
Yes.
You're the archivist there.
Yes.
You're involved in several agencies around the area that are museum or history related.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about all that, but tell our guests a little bit more about you and your connection with Wayne County.
Well, I am not a native. I moved here after I got out of the Navy. Belden is what brought me here. I worked there for right at 2 years, and before I got the opportunity to go back to school full time. So I got my master's degree, actually 2 master's degrees from IUPUI, Master of Library Science and Master of Arts in Public History. So the job at Morrisson-Reeves was absolutely perfect, and I love it, and I am the luckiest person in Wayne County because I get to do some really fun, interesting things every day.
Fun and interesting things
that
make Wayne County a great place to work, live, and play. You've been on other programs at Whitewater Community Television,
yes,
either as a host or a guest, and talking about the wonderful past here in Wayne County. And we talk about building on our foundation, the foundation of our past, to make a great present and a brighter future for all of our residents and the community here. And you've had a lot of opportunity to do just that. We're going to talk about a specific project a little bit later in the program, the Daniel Reid Center project.
Yes.
And we'll find out some more about him, and I can't wait to hear some of those interesting tidbits.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, could you tell us a little bit about what your role as an archivist does that actually promotes Wayne County as a great place to work, live, and play now?
Well, one of the things that I do is just do research on the past. Sometimes that comes in the form of just reference questions. People will send an email or a phone question into Morrisson-Reeves, and if it's a local history sort of question, sometimes I will get to research that. I do have a bit of a blog on the library's site, so I periodically write short articles about different topics in Wayne County. Of course, I'm on the board of the Wayne County Historical Museum, and that's where I get to spend a lot of time bringing history to the public. Different events, specifically Tales from the Departed, every October. I've been in charge of that since we started, and that's always a lot of fun, weather permitting. We've had some pretty unpleasant weather occasionally, but for the most part, it's a really good time, and we get to, highlight people who used to live in Wayne County and how their lives have affected what we do today. And it's fun. So, I always like to say that I kind of, part of my job is to trick people into learning history, whether they want to or not. So that's one of the things I get to do.
Well, one of the things about the past that everybody's familiar with, the almost cliche, if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Right.
And we can always look at what's gone on in the past to find out what they did well and what we can do again well, or what maybe they shouldn't have done so well or shouldn't have done at all, and how to avoid those mistakes in the future. I think it's a terrible thing to try and reinvent the wheel, as it were. So in your role as archivist at the library, I get the impression that you're sitting around, just by the title alone, that you're sitting around there and just collecting lots of information and storing it and organizing it well so that other people could access it, but that's not all you do. A lot of times you take that information and then present it back to people.
Yes.
So if I had a question and I wasn't sure about something, maybe it was this house that I'm looking at, or this neighborhood that I'm looking at, and wanted to know more about that, should I contact someone else, or would you be a good starting point?
I would be a good starting point. I mean, we get a lot of questions about certain houses. Again, when somebody moves into a new house and they want to know what its history is. Sometimes we've got really good resources, sometimes maybe not. But yeah, the library is a good place to start, because sometimes we can find some really good information. Sometimes we can direct you to somebody who might be better suited.
What's one of the interesting things that you might have learned that just kind of surprised you when you were answering one of those questions? Oh, too big of a catalog, right? Of things that have
Trying to
happened.
narrow that one down. No, I'm trying to think of something recent. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah, I said no hardball questions, but this is so
no.
intriguing. I was like, I wonder what's going on there. Well, we'll switch gears a little bit. In a few months, we're hoping to get back to the Historical Museum and really get into some details there.
Yes.
And maybe find out about, from you or someone else, about some of the other fascinating things that you've done there to bring history to life, as it were, in Tales from the Departed and other activities. But right now, you're working on a project, and I said we'd get to this in a few minutes, but the Daniel Reid project. Now, the Reid name is familiar to almost anybody in the area, obviously Reid Hospital, but that is a part of, but not the biggest part necessarily, of Reid's legacy. He was involved.
He had had his hands in a lot of different things. Very briefly, just, for people who don't know, he grew up in Wayne County. But he went off, he got in on the ground floor of the domestic tin plate industry in the 1890s. Okay. His first plant was in Elwood, Indiana. Ultimately, he was in charge of the Tin Plate Trust, so it was a corporation of lots of different smaller tin plate factories. And that organization then was molded into U.S. Steel, the giant, huge corporation that J.P. Morgan formed in New York in 1901. So the Tin Plate Trust was one of the ones that was folded into U.S. Steel. And from that moment on, Daniel Reid was already pretty wealthy, but from that moment he was crazy wealthy. But the nice thing is that he never forgot his hometown. He always considered Richmond his hometown. And he lavished quite a bit of money on this area. And yes, the Reid name is very predominant around here, but he had, for an example, the YMCA building that's on the corner of North A and 8th. He said that he would give $15,000 for that project to build the new building on the condition that the city raised $70,000. So his gift, a lot of times his gift had strings attached. For one thing, the hospital itself, that was an even bigger project. He said he would purchase the land up in what was then Miller's Rue, which was John Miller, of Glenn Miller fame. It was his land. He sold it to Dan Reid, and Daniel Reid then gave $50,000, provided that the city of Richmond create a $25,000 endowment, which they did. And I'm going to slip in another thing. Robert Morrison, the founder of the Morrison Library, near and dear to my heart, of course. Right. In his will, he left $10,000 to the city of Richmond, the interest of which was to fund an orphanage on the west side. Okay. The terms said that at the end of 40 years, the city could do whatever they wanted to with the $10,000. Well, he died in 1864, and so 40 years later is right when the hospital was being built, and so the city unanimously decided to put that, Robert Morrison's $10,000 was the core of that $25,000 endowment that they needed to get Daniel Reid's money. So
lots of
A couple
connections
of
there.
big benefactors there, all in one,
Right.
one story.
Right, and you were throwing around some numbers that today seem, well, they're big numbers, but they're not that big.
Right.
$20,000, $50,000 and so forth. But in 1900,
Yeah, that was big bucks.
Substantial money.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact conversion factor right now, but
but
it
it's in the
was
millions.
significant. Oh yes, absolutely.
Well
absolutely.
into the millions of dollars. And so he, as you said, had strings attached, and you always sometimes wonder about that, but there is a value in when you're investing in someone or something that they also invest something back, and so it's not just a complete gift. Those tend to go away really quick. I think of some friends that I knew in college that didn't invest in their funds at all. Mom or dad funded it all, and they spent more time on Friday and Saturday nights doing things that we're not studying.
Right.
But
Well, he was kind of following the lead of Andrew Carnegie. I mean, noted for building,
his philanthropy.
Hundreds of libraries across the country, but that was the same thing. Carnegie built the building, but the locality, city or county or whatever, had to staff it and run it. And so it was similar to that. Now, on the other hand, the church was absolutely his baby, start to finish. He paid for everything.
So when you say the church, for those of viewers who may not know.
Yes. It's Reid Memorial Presbyterian Church. It was the church that he grew up in. It was the United Presbyterian Church, as opposed to the First Presbyterian Church, which is the one on the corner of North A and 10th. In the 19th century, those were two completely different churches. They were very distinct. So he grew up in the church, and it was actually the church that still, the building still exists. It's the Old North Chapel now, which is just a block north of the church, the current church, Reid Center. So very soon after he got his U.S. Steel money, we started seeing correspondence back here saying that he wanted to build a church for the United Presbyterian congregation, the church that he had grown up in. So his initial thought then was to give the building, the old building, to St. Stephen's Hospital, which was at that point run by the Episcopalian Church, St. Paul's, for their use as a hospital. St. Stephen's was the earliest hospital that we had. Very small though. And when he was alerted to the fact that the need was pretty great for a larger facility, he said, okay, I'll build a hospital too, which is what he did. And the cornerstone laying ceremonies for both the church and the hospital were both held on the same day in September of 1904. So the hospital was completed the following summer, but the church was not completed until May of 1906.
So a lot of things all came together at the right time. This individual who'd achieved success in industry,
Very much.
A lot of success, but didn't forget his hometown and wanted to invest back in the hometown. We have that. I've had other guests sitting in that chair that have been the same thing. They grew up here and they left for whatever reason, and they came back and are reinvesting their time, energy, and talents here in Wayne County.
Yes.
And Daniel Reid is another example of that from our past that
Most
kind
definitely.
of set that example, and building on the philanthropic efforts of others of his time, doing the same kind of thing, reinvesting in communities to build them up. And that's one of the lessons that we can take as we move forward into our future, is how do we reinvest well in our community. One of the things that struck me in your story was that Reid's original plan was to build a smaller hospital and kind of build up what was already there, and just help out a little bit. But when he was alerted to the larger need, stepped up.
He did.
To really promote that. And the thing I'm thinking is, what if he had been the one that said, no, let's just stay with the small plan. I mean, we wouldn't have had a really magnificent structure there that no longer exists, but for over 100 years was the cornerstone of healthcare in our community.
Right.
And then today we have also this legacy of the church, and the church is still standing. The
Yes.
hospital, unfortunately, has
Right.
been razed, but the church is still standing. It's been in kind of a flux, and now
Right.
there's the Reid Center organization
Right.
that is working, that you're on the board of, that is working to preserve this historic structure.
Right.
Now, one of the things that one of the push and pulls that we get with older structures is, are they worth preserving, or do we tear them down to make way for some new progress?
Right.
And what about the Reid Presbyterian Church makes it something that we want to maintain, we want to keep for our community?
Well, the church is just an incredible building on so many levels. But one thing, just as a baseline, is the fact that it is not in bad shape. A lot of times when congregations, dwindle, then the building that they're occupying, the maintenance gets deferred. That really didn't happen with this building. So it's not like it's about to fall down. It's in pretty good shape. It's not, obviously, it's not up to code on a lot of things. So that's actually the first thing on our list of things to do, is to make sure that it's safe for fire, fire safety, all of those things you have to check off right off the bat.
Right.
The other thing about the building is that it was designed by almost exclusively, the interior design was the Tiffany Company, Tiffany & Company. So every single window in that building is a Tiffany window. Now, not all of them are the big memorial windows, but every single one is. There are two memorial windows, and then there's a smaller window in the chapel that depicts a scene. It's not a memorial window, but it's there to commemorate. Actually, the chapel originally was the Sunday school room, and so the window in that room depicts Christ in the temple. So Christ as a teenager, which is something you don't often see.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's a small story.
In stained glass. So it's appropriate for the Sunday school room.
Right.
The organ that it contains is a top of the line. I mean, again, he spared no expense on this, labor of love. Basically, he went top shelf with everything, and so the organ that we have, I know nothing about organs, but the people who do know organs just drool over this thing. It's wonderful. It's been maintained. It's been it's still being played frequently. We've got a core of, I don't know how many, half a dozen people who play it regularly to keep it in shape, and just because they love to play it. So the thing about the building is that it was designed as a performance venue, so it has perfect acoustics. And so that's what we're trying to do now, is continue that performance part of the building. So yes, it's the Reid Memorial Church, but we're calling it the Reid Center. So it's not, yes, we have sacred music sometimes, but we are having other types of concerts and entertainments as well. Back in November, we had Jeff Hamilton and his trio perform. The place was packed, but that's not, church music. That was jazz. We had a dulcimer group a couple of weeks ago. Right after the holidays, we're going to start back up with our every other Wednesday. There's a short little 1-hour noon concert. So there's plenty of opportunities for people to get into the church, enjoy some fantastic music, and get a look at the beauty that is inside that building.
So there's a lot going on there, and you've said a lot, and I'm just thinking, no, it's fabulous. The thing that I'm thinking is we're going to run out of time to talk about this, and there's so much more that we could explore with the history of Wayne County, with Daniel Reid's history. I mean, we've just really touched the surface. I mean, we've hit the highlights, but there's probably some really interesting stories under there. And then the Reid Center, which is the being repurposed Reid Presbyterian Church, to make a venue for the continuation of arts. Again,
Yes.
building on another one
Yeah.
of the foundations of
Absolutely.
Wayne County with our history in arts and recorded music and jazz music
Yep.
in particular here in the area. So there's a lot going on right there on
really
that little
is.
corner.
Yes.
But when I want to find out more, when our viewers in particular want to find out more, how can they do that? Can they get in
Okay.
touch to find out more about the Reid Center in particular, or perhaps archivist activities in general? Start with the Reid Center.
Okay, the Reid Center, I'm pretty sure the website is just reidcenter.org.
Okay.
We have a Facebook page as well. So if you have any interest, I know we have a mailing list, and it would be very easy to get your name on that mailing list. And we don't send blasts out every 2 hours or anything like that. It's just to let people know what events are coming up.
Okay. So that sounds like a great way to get involved as a participant or as
Right.
an observer, spectator, what have you.
And we're working on compiling a group of volunteers who can work as ushers and that sort of thing. So if you want to get involved, there's certainly ways of doing that.
And you were talking about some of the logistics of maintaining the property, and a lot of times with older buildings, they were built under different building standards, and you have new codes. You mentioned fire codes in particular, and so the property there has to be some. Not necessarily rehabilitation, but there's some upgrading that has to happen
Yes,
in
absolutely.
the facility. And if a person was interested in saying, "Look, I want to help. I want to be a board member or bring other time, energy, and talent to this project," is there an opportunity for people to volunteer with the
Absolutely.
organization? And how
Sure.
would they do that?
Still contact the number that's on the website or even through Facebook.
Okay.
That's
And do you have organized plans coming up through 2023 for projects that are in play?
We're working on that.
Okay.
I know again the every other Wednesday concerts. I know we're working on a couple of it's like a Sunday concert, getting other musicians to come in.
Okay.
I know there's more. I'm drawing a blank.
That's all right. So we get,
No,
get
there
people
really
to
is.
find out more.
We're just coming off of 12 performances of Christmas carols, so that's all I'm thinking about is all the Christmas stuff. So, so I haven't really given too much thought to 2023 yet. So I apologize for that.
That's okay. There are some organizations that you have already connected with in Wayne County. The Richmond Shakespeare
Yes.
Festival, you've had some interaction with them and with some other organizations. If you would tell our viewers about some of those other connections that are being made through the Reid Center.
Well, the Richmond Shakespeare Festival is the organization that put on the 12 performances of A Christmas Carol, and it was very successful. It was a wonderful show. I'm sure there will be, I'm sure they'll do it again. I don't know exactly what that will look like, but it was very good for all concerned. Other
Are there-
organizations.
Yeah, I'm going to skip it because
Okay.
I'm just being alerted that we're getting to the end
Yes,
of our
yes, yes.
program, which is kind of good. I know that there's so much more
There
to
really
talk
is.
about with Reid Center. If people are interested in just building on our foundation of the past, we mentioned some of the other organizations that you're involved with, but I'd like to also, I'm kind of giving my opinion of what I think about what's going on here, but I'd like to ask you, Sue, with your extensive experience looking at the history in Wayne County, what would you say is the value of having that foundation as we move forward to connect our communities together?
Well, I mean, just to know where we've been, what kinds of things have happened here, and there's a certain amount of pride that these certain activities took place, or this company that produced lawnmowers across the entire world, or how everybody came together after the explosion, or there's just tons of stories that we can take pride in of things that happened in the past, and then maybe use some inspiration to continue going forward. There's so many stories that can be told.
I'm so glad that you said that we can take pride in our accomplishments to move forward, because a lot of times the troubles of today make us think that there's nothing good
Right.
that's going on now, and if there's nothing good that's going on now, there's probably nothing good that's been in our past. So why should we invest in our future?
Right.
And the truth is that that's a distorted view,
Right.
and
Agreed.
that really there is a lot of great activity, a lot of wonderful events that are going on now,
Yes.
and we are building on a lot of some great things out of the past. I know you and Stephen Martin have done some great things of illuminating some of those wonderful things that have happened here.
I try to.
thank you for coming today to talk a little bit about what's going on in Wayne County.
Yep, thanks for having
and
me.
specifically with the Daniel Reid
Yes.
Center.
Yes. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, and we hope to have you back to talk
yeah.
a little bit more about some of the other events, and,
Sure.
and maybe we'll see you or talk about you at least when we get to the Historical Museum a little bit
Oh, yeah,
later.
absolutely.
And we wish you and yours the great 2023.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks. And thank you for watching. I want to echo that sentiment to you as well. We want to appreciate you for viewing us, for sharing information about what's going on in Wayne County to make Wayne County a great place to work, live, and play, and for getting connected, for doing your part as well. We've had as our guest today Sue King. She's the archivist at Morrisson-Reeves Library, and she's also been talking about the Daniel Reid Center and the project that's going on there. I'm Michael Sweigart, your host. Then on behalf of our producer, Ryan Harris, producer Jenny Lahman, director Ryan Harris, held the staff here at Whitewater Community Television. We thank you for watching and wish you a happy new year.